Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Studio 78 podcast. I am your host, Nache from NacheSnow.com. Welcome, my friends, to another episode. I hope you guys enjoyed last week's episode with Monique Malcolm, and we talked about all things vision boards, my friends. And I hope you guys have started your vision board, especially if you didn't create one at the beginning of this year, because it is never too late. Okay, so let's talk about what this episode is going to be about. It is going to be about three things, my friends. One is, how do you make time for the things you love and actually move out on your goals? Two, I'm going to talk about the importance of having a financial strategy and things that you can do in order to meet your goals. And three, I'm going to be answering a listener's question about how to make your newsletters more effective. Before I do that, just a couple of housekeeping things. If you love this episode, please head over to Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcasting platform and rate me 5 stars. If you are listening on YouTube, please give me a thumbs up. And wherever you're listening, please subscribe. And remember, sharing is caring, my friends. If you think this episode would be useful for someone else, please share away. Okay, I'm just going to jump right into it. And yes, it's just me. These things have been on my mind. And so I wanted to really dedicate an episode to talking about, especially like the first two things when it comes to actually achieving your goals and finance, having a finance strategy. And so when it comes to achieving your goals, I still hear a lot where people are like, I don't have enough time. It feels like I'm not going anywhere. Things are just not happening. I feel like I'm in a rut. And it's interesting because it's summertime. And so I think people aren't giving themselves enough grace because summertime is weird. You might be on vacation or the people around you are on vacation. It's just like this weird period that sometimes during the year we feel like we're not accomplishing things. But that is because we're like enjoying life in other areas. And so maybe those big goals and those big priorities that we thought we were going to be able to accomplish quickly at the beginning of the year just feels like they're not happening. But that is okay because this is August and it's like the academic school year. So yes, a lot of times we go by the calendar year and we have like our New Year's resolution and our vision board. And we're like, okay, we're going to do all these things. We start making some progress on certain things. And then by the time summertime comes, they fall off. But I think the academic calendar that starts in August is a great time to do a refresh. The things that you may have done end of December and January in order to prep, redo them again, like reevaluate what you're doing in August. And Monique and I talked about that a little bit for vision boards, but that comes with everything. So, for example, if you feel like you haven't really had enough time to make time for your passion and make time for your goals, you need to do a reset, my friends. If you look at your digital time, you know how now most phones will let you know like how much time you're spending on social media. If that puppy is anything over 30 minutes in an hour, right there, that time spent doing stuff on social media potentially could be spent making time for your goals and your dreams. And then another thing, TV time. And I know I've said this before, so this is nothing new and it's not judging at all because I'm on social media a lot and I also love my TV time too. But I always make sure that I am carving out time in order to do the things that I love. And what that looks like for me is I am specifically allocating time during the week in order to do things. And so you know how you work. So if that is scheduling something on the calendar and blocking off time and treating it like a meeting or a doctor's appointment you can't miss, if that works for you, then do that. Or if it's mentally knowing you have to do it, and anytime you have a moment spending time on those goals, then do that. You know what works for you. If it's a paper planner and it's putting it in your paper planner, put it in there. And then also, what I want to mention is a lot of times when I talk to people, they talk about, oh, well, I'm just going through so much stuff, or I just went through stuff and I just can't get back into the groove. That is a mind shift thing where you really have to be mindful of your negative thoughts and figure out what works best for you in order to move past it. For example, at the beginning of this year, I fell hard. I think I mentioned it on another episode. Like, I fell really hard. I was going to see a friend's exhibition. I didn't realize the curb was a step down. It was like unusual for like a regular curb. And I was like just looking around and not paying attention. Fell on my face. Surprised that I didn't lose a tooth. Big old gigantic lip. It looked like somebody just busted me in the lip like I was in a street fight or something. Messed up my ankles, messed up my wrists. It was a hot mess. And at the like a blink of an eye, just not paying attention to where I was stepping, it felt as if it just rocked my world. I could have immediately went to a dark place. Like, why is this happening to me? My life is over. I can't believe this. This is going to ruin my whole entire year. But I didn't. Was I pissed at myself and just going through my mind, like, how did this happen? Yeah, for a hot second. But the thing about it is it happened. All I could do now is heal. I don't have a time travel machine. I couldn't go back in time and just go the other way around the car in order to not trip. All I could do is be grateful that I had all of my teeth, okay, that I didn't lose a tooth because trust me, my friends, literally concrete to face. Bam. Okay. I should not have my two front teeth. They should be gone. I don't know if I'm going to have a dead tooth 10 years from now from that traumatic experience, but at least I have my teeth now. I was hobbling around all over the place because my ankle was all jacked up. It was a hot mess. But the thing about it, I was like, I put a positive spin on it. I had my life. Yes, I was banged up. I didn't break any bones. Someone was there with me in order to take me to the hospital. Strangers pulled over their car in order to make sure I was okay. Like, humanity in the world is still here. I was like, okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take time to heal. I'm going to pause some of my projects. And then once I feel a little bit better, I'm going to get back on this horse and do what I need to do. I'm not going to let this one thing that happened to me define the rest of my year, define who I am, define XYZ. I'm going to move forward. Now, I realize, my friends, that there is a scale of challenges. So, me falling and having to heal from that, and someone who might have elder care issues is very different. And depending on what that challenge is, really figuring out how you can move forward from that challenge. And it is really important to move forward in whatever way makes sense for you. Because if you don't move forward, you're going to get stuck in this rut and you're going to be even more miserable. You're not going to make time for the things you want. You're not going to accomplish your goals. And then you're just going to look around and it's going to be 3 years later and you haven't done anything. And you don't want that. And I don't want that for you. I say, do what you need to do in order to get back on that horse. For some people, it is holding themselves accountable by using a digital calendar and having reminders and sticking with that calendar. For other people, it's having an accountability partner, someone you could trust that's going to check in on your progress and push you. For other people, it's really writing out like a detailed plan of what they want to do. So then they have this step-by-step process of how they want to accomplish their goal, how they want to start making time for their passion, whatever it might be. But the most important thing I want you to take away right now is there is enough time in a day. You just need to hold yourself accountable and make sure every week you are doing something in order to move forward with that goal. Okay. It's really important. I just wanted just to remind people about that because just some of the things that I read on social media, I'm just like, people are really in a rut a little bit this summer. And since we are starting the academic season, which is August, even if we're not in school, that academic calendar, I just think that this is a good time to remind people that this is a good time to refresh. Start planning August now to August of next year and figuring out what you want to do. Okay, so next up, I wanted to talk about finances. I've read a thread actually when Threads first started by an influencer that I really like and respect. And I forgot exactly what she said, but it was to the effect of looking at a home that was like really expensive in one of the city areas. Like, this is so ridiculous. Who will ever be able to afford this? But however she like framed it or put it, I just was like, that's such a negative way to approach that, right? And I'm like, it's so many other women that are looking, and this is not judging her at all. So I just want to make that clear. But there's so many other women looking at her, and I'm just like, are they going to also get that negative mindset? Yeah, with the housing prices the way they are, I'm never going to be able to get that. Because then I'm just like, that is why sometimes we don't get to where we need to be because we look at something as if it is unattainable. And when it's unattainable, then we reduce like our dreams, our wants, our desires, our goals, are not as big as they can't be because we feel like this thing is out of reach. And that, my friends, is dangerous. That is when we don't get to where we need to be and want to be because we don't feel like we can accomplish it, that we deserve it, that it is something that is within our span of control, but it is. And so you might be like, Nache, you're crazy. I'm only making 30, 40,000 a year. How can maybe I afford $1 million house in San Francisco or $1 million condo in New York? And the answer is it's being more strategic with your money, how you make money, how you save money, how you invest money, how you think about money. You have to totally do a mind shift of what your position is when it comes to all things money, because I've said this before and I will say this again. I have seen people who make under $70,000 be able to afford really expensive homes. And I've seen people who make a ridiculous amount of money, but because of the way they're spending their money, can't afford or get even approved for loans for homes, cars, or whatever. So it is really what you do with your money and how you invest in your money. Invest. It is educating yourself on what you can do in order to get there. And when you learn how to invest your money wisely, that $1 million, $2 million, $3 million home that you're dreaming about, or that crazy expensive vacation that you want to take where you travel around the world, you can do it. Now, depending on how much money you are making, how you decide to invest and save, the timeline of when that can happen might shift. Maybe for some, it can be in a year. For others, maybe it's 3 years. For others, it might be 5 years. But the point that I want you to get and to realize is regardless, you can get there. And the timeline also depends on you, okay? Because maybe you are only making a certain amount of money and maybe you're out of debt and maybe you're investing and you feel, oh my goodness, I still can't get where I want to be as fast as I want to be. Then you might need to do something to help speed up that process if that is your goal, like getting a second job or starting a side hustle. And I know it's not as easy as I say it is, but the thing is, if you really want it, you will figure out and find a way. In early Studio 78 podcast episodes, or even I believe on some of my YouTube videos, I talk to you guys about how I had 3 hustles. Like, I'm half Jamaican, so my friends would make fun of me, like, you are a true Jamaican, because Jamaicans have a reputation of hard work and having 2, 3, 4 jobs in order to do what they need to do. And that was me in the beginning. My thing was, I will do whatever it takes in order to get to where I needed to be, because it was a priority for me. And that's another thing that I want to stress, is that it depends on your goals. For some other people, maybe they're like, I'm not going to do all of that because I rather spend time with doing X, with family, or just relaxing, or whatever that might be. That is totally fine. That is fine. But with that, no, there comes a sacrifice. You might not be able to afford that home in that location that you want. Or maybe that special vacation you want is going to take longer because you've prioritized something else. My whole message is, there is no right or wrong, but I want you to realize that if you do have a goal that seems unattainable, like that $2 million house in San Francisco or New York or DC or the beach in Florida, that you, regardless of where you are right now in life, a 21-year-old graduating college or a 50-year-old who has had a 30-year or 25-year career, it might take you different paths to get to where you need to be, and the time frame might be different, but you can get there with a financial strategy and plan. I will link to my latest episode on finance, and that episode in the show notes also has a bunch of links to other financial folks that I've talked to and resources. But you have to put time, if it's a priority to you, you have to put time into educating yourself, and you have to change the way you move, how you spend your money, how you invest your money. You have to make an effort to actually accomplish the goal, but you can do it. So I just wanted to put out that PSA, that reminder, because I don't know, I just get tired of sometimes seeing messages from other women to other women that things are out of our reach. And I'm like, that's not fair. I think that is why sometimes predominantly males are able to like have these $1 million investments and $1 million homes and do all these things, because for some reason their peers and what they're being taught is like they can do anything and accomplish anything. And then the messaging that we as women are getting is, without a man, we can't do that, or without this, we can't do that. So these prices are just ridiculous, and this will never happen because, yeah, we just can't afford it. When it's like, if they can afford it, we can figure out a plan and we can afford it too. We can have 5 or 6 investment homes if we want to. We can go to Bora Bora if we want to. We can do anything we put our minds to. And so I think we need to start changing that message. And it is a goal of mine to continue to message that out, to make sure that for those that choose to listen to the podcast, to choose to listen to my messaging, are reminded and are giving tools and strategies on how you can do it. So love to hear your thoughts if you agree or disagree with me. But I feel like I'm seeing and hearing from it more, and from people who are major influencers, not all, but I enough that I felt like I needed to put out this reminder on this particular podcast episode. Okay, so the last thing that I want to talk about are our newsletters. So please listen to this voice message from Amanda. She left a message on SpeakPipe. If you go to nachesnow.com/SpeakPipe, or if you go to the show notes, you'll see the little speaker. You can leave me a message that I will respond to, or I could just play it on the episode episode if you want me to, if you just want to like deliver a message or something like that. But anywho, Amanda had a very specific question about newsletters that I want to address on this podcast. So here we go.
Hi, Nache and Lakay. My question is about newsletters. So I've always heard and read that your newsletter audience is your best audience. So I've been working on building up my newsletter subscribers. I announced I was going to start one, what it would contain, and I was waiting to send it until I had a large enough audience to like justify hitting the send button. It's a monthly newsletter. I've promised to only send it once a month. So I finally sent it when I had something new I'm launching, and 13% of the emails bounced, 7% of them unsubscribed after receiving the newsletter, and only 7% of them actually clicked on anything in the newsletter. And I was shocked because I'd always heard that your newsletter audience is your best audience. And yet, when I've been marketing and promoting this same item that I've launched on my social media, and I can track, the click throughs from my link trackers, I've been getting far better click-throughs and purchases from the social media than from the newsletter. So my question is, what's up with that? Have I misunderstood newsletters? What am I doing wrong? Why is the audience seems like it's so much worse in the newsletter than in my social media accounts?
Okay, so Amanda, great question. So many thoughts there. First of all, I want to say when it comes to newsletter, I know some people who are killing the game in newsletters. And for future guests, I'll make sure that I ask them beforehand if they have a successful newsletter. And if they do, I'll make sure to incorporate that into the interview so they can provide some tips on getting as much engagement as possible from their newsletter. So the first thing that I want to talk about is nurturing your newsletter list. And so you mentioned in the beginning how you waited a little bit so you can have enough people in order to start your newsletter. I recommend for anyone who is starting out, I don't care if you only have 5 people or 10 people on your newsletter list, just start writing and cranking that puppy out, because what it's going to do is get you used to writing a newsletter and then learning what your audience likes, because you're going to definitely look at the metrics and see what they're clicking on and how they're reacting to the design of your newsletter. As 5 to 10 becomes 100, and 100 becomes 500, and 500 becomes 1,000, becomes 5,000, and so on, you are going to really be an expert at the newsletter because you've been doing it for a while, learning your audience and trying new things. If you're starting out, anyone who's listening, just start. And so Amanda, for you, since you did wait a little bit before sending out your newsletter, you have to remember how, I don't know from when that first person that signed up, how long it was until you sent out that newsletter. But that newsletter is now, you're sending out a cold newsletter because they haven't heard from you in a while. And so they don't know you, they don't know what to expect from you. So they're not going to engage with you like your social media following, because you mentioned later on in your message that your newsletter, there wasn't that much engagement, but on your social media account, people are clicking the links, purchasing your products and what have you. But that's because the people on social media know you. You are probably posting a couple of times a week, you're doing stories, like they know you, they are friends with you, and they trust you. Whereas some of the people on your newsletter, who knows if they're following you on social media? And so they don't know you at all because they've only gotten a couple of emails from you. So you have to nurture them the same way you have nurtured your social media following. And so that is why your initial engagement is a bit lukewarm, but don't give up. Come up with a strategy for your newsletter. For my newsletter, I have what's called funnels. And so as soon as someone joins the newsletter, I already have 12 to 15 emails written out that go out on a weekly basis. So they are constantly hearing from me. So with the newsletter list that have been on my newsletter for a while, they might only hear from me like once a month or so because they're getting my in the moment newsletters. But at least the people who are just signing up for the newsletter list that are part of my funnel, I'm warming warming them up because they are getting stuff on a weekly basis. And then they also will get any monthly or bi-monthly emails that I send out, which I put a date on it just to let people know those emails are fresh and hot off the press. And so I'm not sure what email platform you're using, MailChimp, ConvertKit, Flowdesk, but usually you can set up those funnels. So I would set up like a little funnel for people who are coming into your email list, and so they can start to get to know you. Second, you need to play around with the layout of your email and how you want to put your call to actions in your email, because some people respond to links in the text, some people respond to linked images, and some people respond to buttons. I find buttons really work well, but so does links in the text. Images, because sometimes people don't realize an image is clickable. But you can use your metrics in order to determine where people are clicking and when they fall off and what part of the newsletter they like the best, so then you can determine the flow of your newsletter. So some people have a one-part newsletter, like if they have a class or a product, they'll just talk about that one product and that's it. Some people will have multi-parts. They will write something about their week. They'll also feature a blog article, and they potentially could have a third part, which is a longer newsletter. You just have to like figure out what you want. Some people just have text-based newsletters. Some people have image-based. Some have text and image-based. You have to figure out what your style is and what motivates you to write, and then also what your folks engage with. So for me, I've tried MailChimp, ConvertKit, and Flowdesk. I'm on Flowdesk now. And if you want a discount with Flowdesk, NacheSnow.com/Flowdesk. And there's tons of others out there too. But for me, I did go to ConvertKit for a while, but that's mostly for people who are just writing text, which works for a lot of people. But that wasn't me. I don't get motivated just writing text. I need images. I like cool templates. I like beautiful emails, which is why I went to Flowdesk. And so even though text-based emails might work for other people, they don't work for me because I just wouldn't even be motivated just to write text-based. Even though it works for some, it's not going to work for me because I'm not going to be motivated to write it. And so for me, I had to figure out, using images and text, how can I flow my email where my audience will engage with my content? And for example, at the bottom of my monthly emails that I send out, I always have like stuff that I found or purchased or what have you. And I know people love that. So I always put that at the bottom of the email, because then it forces people to scroll through the top content to get to that content. And I'm hoping that the podcasts that are in the middle, blog posts that I'm posting in the middle, that they'll stop to look to that to get to that one part that I know they really love, which is like my resource part. In short, you need to figure out what your audience likes and how the flow of your emails are, and then using the data from the metrics, the stats that your email provider gives you, tweak your email list as necessary. But the most important part is to be as consistent as possible, because that is nurturing your email, so you could turn your cold list into a warm list, and there are people that like you, love you, will continue to subscribe and then eventually click because they know you, just like now the social media people know you. The last thing that I wanted to mention is it is important to not give up on this newsletter list, because I know you've heard it before, Miss Amanda, but social media, we don't control those platforms. We don't control Instagram. We don't control TikTok. We don't control Facebook, LinkedIn. We don't control any of them. And so at any point, number one, they could just kick us off because we violated something, or they can have a server that's down for days. So even if you're in the middle of a launch or something like that, if their server is down, there's nothing you could do. There's no way of reaching your folks. But if you have a newsletter, you own that list. And it's a reminder for people with newsletters, always export your list like every quarter or every 6 months down as an Excel sheet and keep it on your computer as a backup, because any platform could go down. But as long as you have your emails, you could take them somewhere else. But it's going back to my point, you own that list. And so even if social media fails, even if something Clubhouse or something else comes along that's taking people's attention away from Instagram, where maybe you're getting a lot of love now, but might not get a lot of love from 2, 3 years from now, your newsletter is a constant. No one can take that away. So, Amanda, don't give up on it. Just continue to nurture it. And another thing is think about how you're collecting the emails, because you want to make sure you are attracting the right people. So, the pop up that is on your website, or either the embedded form that's on your website, or the link that you might have somewhere else, make sure that people understand what they're getting. So, for the most part, I try to make sure that people understand that they are going to get my take on productivity, finance, journaling. They're going to get the Studio 78 podcast, anything related to technology and tools that might help them. So, they're getting a mix of how to make time for their passion, if they choose to make it a business, learning from other women, and then also tools and techniques to keep them productive. If you love that, then you love my newsletter, nachesnow.com/newsletter. That is what you get. You get me. That's my brand. If you sign up thinking you're going to get something else, then you're going to unsubscribe, and that's okay too. And that's another thing, Amanda. And for you others out there, if people unsubscribe to your newsletter list, that is great, because they were never going to purchase from you anyway, or click your link, read your blog, read your whatever, because they weren't your folks. And that is fine, because you only want people on your newsletter list that are for you. So in sum, keep writing those newsletters, play with the format, look at your metrics to see what clicks. Make sure that you're as consistent as possible. Think about doing funnels. Think about how you're capturing emails, and make sure that you're actually capturing your people and people that will resonate with your content. And you can do that in the messaging of the newsletter, so people are they're not surprised at the content when they sign up. Don't be afraid of unsubscribes. Yeah, you'll be fine. I'll make sure I link to a few resources in the show notes that talk about how to nurture a list. And there's a lot of content out there, blog posts and YouTube posts, that will help you think through it. But the most important thing is that you maintain your voice, because everybody has like a trick, a method, but you need to really figure out what resonates with you and what resonates with your audience. Again, I'm on Flowdesk. I love pretty templates. I love images. That's for me. But if you're just starting out, you might want to use MailChimp, because it's completely free up into a certain amount of subscribers. People love MailChimp. MailChimp is a great company. And some people stick with them even once they get over X amount of subscribers and go into their paid subscription. You want to choose an email platform that works for the messaging and the strategy that you have for your newsletter list, because there's also some other ones that I won't get into right now that are for people who have 50, 100,000 subscribers, and they have a lot of complications that they need to be able to do in order to reach different audiences. And there are some platforms that are built in order to help people who have those large platforms engage with their email list. So just do your research, figure out what works best for you, and then just start, because you can always pivot later, but start as soon as possible, even if you have 5 subscribers. Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed this solo episode, and I hope it will motivate you to do the things that you love. I will have additional guests coming up to help inspire you with their stories and tips and techniques. If you love this podcast, please head on over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify, rate me 5 stars. If you're watching over on YouTube, hey, remember to give me a thumbs up. Wherever you're listening, please subscribe, my friends. And sharing is caring. If you think this will help someone that is looking to make time for their passion or needs a little boost when it comes to their financial goals or had a question about newsletters, please share this episode with them. All right, until next time, have a good one, my friends. Thanks for being here. Bye.